Welcome to the European Association for Higher Education Advancements YouTube and podcast channel.
Yeah.
Today,
It's great to be here.
we're diving deep into some choppy waters.
Oh, yeah.
The waters of European higher education.
Hi.
Specifically, how rising tuition costs are making waves.
Yeah.
We've got a
The big one.
fascinating report from the EAHEA.
For sure.
And trust me, it's packed with insights.
It is. It
It's
really
like
is.
a-
This isn't just about numbers on a balance sheet.
Right.
The EAHEA's findings show how these rising costs are creating a ripple effect, impacting students, families,
Wow.
the quality of education, and even society as a whole.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's start with the human side of this.
Okay.
Imagine yourself graduating, not with a diploma,
Oh, yeah.
but with a mountain of debt.
Oh, I see what you mean.
That's the reality for many European students today.
Right. And that weight,
It's a lot to carry.
that financial pressure, it doesn't just disappear after graduation. It can cast a long shadow over major life decisions.
I can imagine.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Are you going to buy a house sooner?
Definitely not.
If you're drowning in student loan debt, start a family.
No.
Or even pursue a career that you're passionate about but might not pay top dollar.
Tough choices.
Exactly.
So it's almost like this financial burden is forcing people to choose practicality over passion.
Yes, exactly. The EAHEA report found that this financial strain disproportionately impacts those who are already facing an uphill battle.
Like who?
Low-income students and those who are the first in their families to attend university.
Right.
It's creating a barrier
Yeah.
to higher education, essentially shutting out those who could benefit the most.
Which then has implications for workforce diversity, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if fewer people from diverse backgrounds can afford higher education,
Yeah.
that's going to be reflected in the workforce.
You're spot on. The EAHEA is very clear on this point. A less diverse workforce
sense.
means fewer perspectives, less innovation, and ultimately a society that's not reaching its full potential.
Right.
It makes you wonder,
That really does.
what are the long-term consequences of a system where higher education becomes more of a privilege than a right?
That's a pretty sobering thought.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the individual struggling.
Right.
It's about what we as a society are losing out on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the burden on students
Okay.
and the impact on diversity.
Yeah.
But the EEEA report also raises concerns about the quality of education itself. What did they find there?
Well, they found that as colleges and universities face increasing financial pressure,
Okay.
often due to declining state funding,
Yeah.
they're forced to make tough choices.
Yeah.
Sometimes those choices involve cutting corners,
Such as?
which can directly impact the quality of the education they provide.
So students are paying more, but potentially getting less in return.
That's the worry. One example the EAHEA highlights is the rise of non-tenured faculty.
Interesting.
These are professors who aren't on a permanent track,
I see.
which means they might have less experience
Okay.
and sometimes less incentive to invest in their students' learning experience.
So let me get this straight.
Okay.
You're telling me that I could be paying more for my education,
Yeah.
but my professor might be less experienced and less invested in my success.
It's a possibility.
Where's the logic in that?
It's a tough situation.
Yeah.
And the EA8 report doesn't sugarcoat it. Universities are facing a financial squeeze,
Right.
and they're trying to balance the books. But the question is, at
Yeah.
what cost?
That's a great question, and one I think we need to explore further.
Yeah.
You, as a listener, might be wondering the same thing. If you're paying more for education, what are you getting?
Right.
Or rather, not getting in
Yeah.
return?
It's a good question. It's a valid question. And it gets even more complicated when you factor in the issue of declining state funding.
Right. The EAHEA report pointed to that as a major driver of these tuition hikes. So essentially, as governments reduce their support for higher education,
Right.
universities are left scrambling to make up the difference.
Yep.
And who ends up footing the bill? The students.
Precisely. It's like we're shifting the responsibility for funding education from society as a whole onto the shoulders of individual students and their families.
And that's not really fair, is it?
And that raises some fundamental questions about how we as a society value and prioritize education.
Yeah, it's almost as if we're saying, hey, education is important,
Right.
but not important enough for us to invest in collectively.
Yeah.
Instead, we're placing the burden squarely on those who are trying to access it.
It's a concerning trend.
It is.
If we view education as a public good,
Right.
a shared investment in our collective future, then shouldn't we be supporting it through adequate public funding?
Now, that's a big question.
Yeah,
And one that I bet you, as a listener, have thought about, too.
for sure.
If you were in charge of allocating public funds,
Oh, yeah.
how would you balance the needs of education
Right.
with other priorities? It's a tough choice, right?
There's no easy answer, but the EAA report does offer some potential solutions.
Oh, good. Okay.
They suggest a multifaceted approach to tackle this complex issue.
Okay, let's break that down.
All right.
What are some of the key recommendations they put forward?
They propose a three-pronged approach,
3 prongs.
focusing on increasing state funding for higher education,
Okay.
encouraging universities to implement cost-cutting measures,
Okay.
and expanding financial aid options for students.
So it's not about relying on a single solution,
Right.
but rather attacking the problem from different angles.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Each solution has its own set of pros and cons,
I imagine.
and a combination is likely needed for lasting change.
Makes sense.
Increased state funding, for instance,
Yeah.
seems like the most direct way to alleviate the pressure on students.
Definitely.
But it requires political will
Ah, there's the rub.
and often involves difficult budget trade-offs.
Right. And then there's the issue of cost cutting by universities.
Mm-hmm.
How realistic is that?
Oh, what?
I mean, where do you even start?
There are several avenues that universities can explore.
Okay.
The EAHEA report highlights things like streamlining administrative processes,
Makes sense?
adopting innovative teaching methods, and optimizing resource allocation.
Okay.
The key, of course,
Yeah.
is to ensure that cost-cutting measures don't negatively impact the quality of education.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot,
Yeah,
reducing costs without compromising educational value.
for sure.
And what about the third prong of their approach,
Okay.
the financial aid for students? What kind of suggestions do they have there?
They strongly advocate for increasing the availability of scholarships, grants, and other forms of financial assistance, and particularly for students from low-income backgrounds
Right.
and those who are the first in their families to attend university.
So it's about creating a more equitable
Yes.
and accessible higher education system
Absolutely.
where financial barriers don't prevent deserving students from pursuing their educational goals.
And they emphasize that addressing this complex issue requires collaboration and creative solutions from all stakeholders involved,
Like who?
including governments, universities,
Okay.
and even individual students.
It's a collective effort, right? We all have a role to play in shaping the future of higher education.
Yeah.
But with so many potential solutions on the table,
Mm-hmm.
it can be hard to know where to start.
Right.
What, in your view, is the most promising path forward?
That's a great question. It's not about finding a single magic bullet.
Right.
Instead, I think the most effective approach involves a combination of increased public investment in higher education,
Okay.
responsible cost management by universities, and expanded financial aid options for students.
So it's about finding that balance,
Right.
Making sure higher education is both accessible and affordable while maintaining a high standard of quality and fostering innovation.
Right.
Now, we've talked about a lot of big picture stuff.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back to you, the listener.
Okay.
Which of these solutions resonates most with you?
Right.
What do you think is the best way to address this challenge of rising tuition costs?
It's a complex issue. No easy answers. But a strong foundation of public funding is essential. It sends a message. We as a society value education.
Yeah.
And we're willing to invest in it.
So it's not just about throwing money at the problem, but making a conscious decision. Prioritize education.
Exactly. And it's about accountability, making sure those funds are used effectively to improve access, affordability, and the quality of education.
That makes sense. Being smart with our investments, making sure they're actually making a difference.
Yeah.
But we also talked about the need for universities to be more efficient, to find ways to cut costs without sacrificing quality. Do you think that's achievable?
I do. I think there's a lot of room for innovation in higher education. We need to embrace new technologies, explore flexible learning models, and really challenge the traditional ways of doing things. There are creative solutions out there. It's just a matter of being willing to implement them.
It's about adapting to the changing world,
Right.
finding new ways to deliver quality education that's also affordable and accessible.
Absolutely. And in the end, it's about empowering students. Financial aid is crucial, but we also need to equip students with the knowledge and tools to make informed decisions about their education and their future careers.
Giving them the resources and the guidance to navigate this complex and ever-changing system. Well, this deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. We've uncovered some serious challenges facing higher education in Europe, but we've also explored some potential solutions. It's clear that rising tuition costs are a complex issue with far-reaching consequences.
It's a challenge that requires a collective effort. Governments, universities, and individuals all have a role to play in shaping the future of higher education.
And you, as a listener, are part of that conversation. The choices we make today will have a ripple effect for generations to come. So as you go about your day, think about what you've learned, consider the different perspectives, and ask yourself, what role do you want to play in shaping the future of higher education?
The EAHEA report is a valuable resource for anyone who wants to delve deeper into this issue. I highly recommend checking it out.
You can find it on their website, along with a wealth of other information about higher education in Europe. Please don't forget to follow the European Association for Higher Education Advancement on YouTube and social media. Until next time, keep diving deep.